What Cameron Sexton can learn from the White House about freedom of the conservative press. Bill requiring proof of U.S. citizenship for Tennessee voter registration is scheduled for the House subcommittee. A resolution banning a statewide property tax in Tennessee passes out of the Senate. A bill limiting Governor Lee's emergency powers passes the Senate committee. We have a full-service community school bill passes controversially in the Tennessee House subcommittee. A bill enhancing citizen input at Tennessee public meeting advances. A bill protecting public students from being required to use goofy, crazy pronouns makes it out of committee. And finally, Hamilton County Sheriff seeks jail enforcement model partnership with ICE. Brandon Lewis here with the 10 Con Big 7 weekend update out in God's creation. It was such a beautiful sunny day. I didn't want to be indoors. I hope you and yours are going to have a great weekend. And there are some of you I know I will see tonight at the Tennessee Stands fundraiser. I'm going out there to support Gary and his wonderful team, and I hope that I will see many of you out there. My beautiful daughter, Sylvia, will be working our table, so please come by and say hello. Further, for those of you who live in Hamilton County, we're going to have our reorganization tomorrow. That's Monday, March 1st. I'll be there bright and early, helping Gail and her group at Activate Hamilton to get the word out. So this is the last call for those of you who feel you may be bona fide to attend and see how the sausage is really made. Go to activatehamilton.com. That is activatehamilton.com and pre-qualify before time runs out. Let's get on with the show. What Cameron Sexton can learn, which would be almost everything, from the White House about freedom of the press. While Tennessee's own Speaker of the House has done all in his power to deliberately keep conservative reporting stifled in the Capitol, President Donald Trump and his White House team are representing the most transparent administration in history by shaking the foundations of traditional media reporting and opening the doors to independent and conservative journalism in unprecedented ways. Before the start of this year's legislative session, the Tennessee Conservative requested full access, but we were completely denied, right? Sexton has complete authority to say who can and can't come in to press conferences and on the floor. We have heard this directly from the mouth of the press corps that they don't ever tell the speaker what he can and can't do. So this is specifically his choice to keep out conservative news outlets, and he has a long history of doing it. Meanwhile, in an example of freedom of the press, the White House press team, led by Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt, is taking commanding action to combat the record low level of trust the American public has in legacy media. And interestingly enough, the Associated Press, which is remarkably liberal, Cameron Sexton's fine with them being in there. He's fine with Phil Williams being in there. He's perfectly fine with the Tennessean being there and every other left-leaning publication. But there's one conservative publication that actually reports the truth for GOP primary voters, and that's the one that's a real threat, according to Sexton. Additionally, the seat in front of the briefing room, typically occupied by the press secretary's staff, was converted to what Leavitt calls the new media seat to be filled with members of the new media outlets. Quote, despite being some of the most viewed news websites in the country, have not been given seats in the table. And that's absolutely the same thing we've got going on. The Tennessee Conservative has a larger subscriber base, attracts more views, attracts more eyeballs than a lot of press outlets that are allowed inside the press conferences by Cameron Sexton. I don't understand this. Leavitt went on to say, opening up this briefing room to new media voices who produce news-related content and whose outlets is not only represented by corporate media, we welcome independent journalists, podcasters, social media influencers, and content creators to apply for credentials. Cameron Sexton can just say, sure, come in. We got nothing to hide here. Not the way he wants to do it. Leavitt stated the decision, quote, gives back the power to the people. Legacy outlets who have participated in the press pool for decades will still be allowed to join, but we will also be offering this privilege to well-deserving outlets who have never been allowed to share this awesome responsibility. So you can see the huge leadership difference. As soon as Trump comes in, for the first time ever, leadership is carrying preventative illegal immigration bills. For the first time ever, they're actually moving forward on some issues. It sucks that it takes someone in Washington, D.C. getting elected to see a little bit of movement on these things. And I hope Sexton will do what's right and allow us access, because if he doesn't, it is my intention and my plan to take our complaints directly to his constituents. And I'll just tell you this, and same thing I just emailed the state campaign finance folks about. We're going to be reaching out to Cameron Sexton's 3 of 4 and 4 of 4 primary voters to do a Tennessee free press petition. I'm going to try to get started on it next week. I got a lot to do, but I'm going to make time to do it because we need free press access in Tennessee, and you deserve it. Bill requiring proof of U.S. citizenship for Tennessee voters registration is scheduled for House Subcommittee. A bill which would require any person to vote in the state after July 1st, 2025 to submit proof of U.S. citizenship has been placed on the House Elections and Campaign Finance Subcommittee calendar for March 4th. This is sponsored by Kelly Kessling, and the Senate companion is being carried by Joey Hensley. Joey Hensley I know to be very conservative. In addition to requiring acceptable forms of proof of citizenship like a birth certificate, U.S. passport, naturalization documents, when an individual registers to vote, the legislation would require the state coordinator of elections to compare the voter registration database with other state and federal agency databases to report discrepancies. So this is a good bill. I'm glad it's being brought. It should have been brought before. If I'm not mistaken, when conservatives have carried this bill in the past, it has been killed. This exact same bill, more or less, has been brought before and killed. Why was it killed in committee? Not because it's not a good bill. It's because leadership, if you are conservative, and I've heard this from every conservative member, if you're a conservative and you give Randy McNally or Cameron Sexton any grief on any bill, even if it's completely in conflict with your constituents, your legislation will be killed. It will be slow rolled. It's exactly what they do. I think that we're going to see a lot of interesting facts come out as this federal corruption case rolls on, because I'm getting some inside sources telling me how corrupt, how top down, how much intimidation, how much backroom dealing, how much nefarious entrapment has been going on in Republican leadership. And I think a lot of that's going to come to light here shortly as these federal investigations roll out. Now, you may look at these investigations and go, oh, it's just a few bad actors. It's just like a bunch of people at the top. I'm here to tell you, when you're in leadership and there's corruption at the top, typically organizations model the top. And so I think that we're going to see that there's a lot more rotten wood on this log than what we are currently seeing, even if somebody did decide to be a stool pigeon so that they can make sure that they are immune for prosecution. We're going to see how that goes. Resolution banning a statewide property tax in Tennessee passes out of Senate committee. A resolution to amend the Tennessee Constitution and effectively ban the General Assembly from permitting statewide property tax in Tennessee passes the Senate Judiciary Committee by a 7-2 vote. That's a good thing. If this happens again during the wait a minute, all Republicans voted for it and Democrats voted against it. And what that means is Democrats would love to see some kind of statewide property tax, because they can't get enough tax money to be spent out of your pocket. So this year's resolution, if it passes with the 2/3 majority, you will see some kind of question pertaining to this on your ballot the next time you go to vote. Bill limiting Tennessee governor's emergency powers passes Senate committee. It's a shame this didn't happen earlier. More or less, Senator Mark Pody has been a warrior on this. He saw what happened during COVID when Bill Lee shut down churches, schools, canceled holidays, said masks work, take your vaccines, social distancing is a real thing, when in fact he was wrong on each and every subject and did massive economic and personal and religious and civic damage to the state of Tennessee more than any other governor. That will be his legacy. Not that he spent $20-some-odd thousand to give away a $7,000 scholarship near the end of his lame dunk term, but rather that he was the worst governor, in my opinion, in Tennessee history from an economic standpoint, especially for small businesses and for civil liberties. And I think that's how history will remember him. But it finally passed out. The final roll call vote was 8-1 in favor. The Democrat, Jeff Yarbrough, is like, no, we definitely need to be able to take away people's rights if somebody's got a cold. And if everybody is too stupid to actually listen to the constituents saying that this is a bunch of crap, we need that to happen again, Jeff Yarbrough says. And of course, Richard Briggs had problems with the bill, but voted for it anyway. Richard Briggs thinks everybody should line up behind the Pfizer executive and take whatever shot they take, regardless if it's against their conscience or their health interests. And so it's no surprise there. Guys, You may have seen me sound the alarm that we are 33% down for the year. And we are. And you may even get a letter in the mailbox saying we're 33% down of the year. And that is true. Of course, by the time the mail gets to you, it may have improved. But looking at the records right now we're only about 12 or 13% down. But the problem is we have increased expenses. So if you look at your household budget, if you are down 15% in your income, but if your expenses are up 20 or 30%, you are still behind. So yes, we are behind from last year's giving still, but we have increased expenses because we have a capital reporter, and we're trying to do some other things to make sure that capital reporter actually can have access. So please do go to TennesseeConservativeNews.com, hit that support button. You know, one thing I'm going to talk about to folks at the Tennessee Stands event tonight is that conservative Christians need to put their money where their mouth is. You can't think that everything's going to change because you spend 15 hours a week watching Fox News or listening to podcasts. No, it's these little investments of money and time at state and local levels that you can actually see a measurable difference in, supporting organizations that align with your values. That is what is going to make Tennessee freer, more conservative, and to put up the bulwarks of conservatism that cannot be plowed down by the corporate rhinos and the Democrats or the fake news media. TennesseeConservativeNews.com/support, or mail your checks to P.O. Box 625, Signal Mountain, Tennessee 37377. That is P.O. Box 625, Signal Mountain, Tennessee 37377. We appreciate all our stalwart supporters. We need your help. Pitch in. Next story, full service community school bill passes in Tennessee subcommittee. Gino Bolso and William Slater voted against this bill. I'll be honest, when I see Gino Bolso voting against a bill, I tend to think that it's probably a bad bill. There are 158 community schools in operation overseen by the State Office of Research and Education Accountability. Representative Kirk Haston, who has had a dodgy record on being conservative in the past, proposed legislation that would remove this oversight and give that responsibility to the University of Tennessee, which is probably one of the most woke liberal organizations we have in the entire state. Yeah, that's who we definitely want watching over these community schools. Representative Bolso made a point that Tennesseans in his district were opposed to the bill as they have concerns with the public school system going way beyond its usual parameters. He also questioned UT being put in charge of grant processes, saying that the institutions of higher education tend to be left-leaning. Well, no crap. Tennessee Liberty Network has been warning conservatives about the threat of parental authority in conjunction with community schools for a few years. Quote, if you prefer to maintain parental authority over your children regarding physical and mental health, immunizations, medical records, counseling services, family matters, and child development, you better wake up. But we know that there is a huge education corporate cabal of leftists that basically run large sections of the Republican Party. I don't like this bill. I wish it hadn't passed out. One of the major reasons that so many homeschoolers are against any and all government entanglement is because it seems like it starts out bad and then it always gets worse. That's been my lived experience throughout my entire life. I'm sure you have seen the same thing. Next story, bill enhancing citizen input at Tennessee public meetings advances to House committee. A bill that enhances the input of Tennesseans at public meetings passed the House committee, with Chairwoman Iris Rutter from Winchester voting against it. I don't know why. She doesn't think that it is a good idea, apparently, for you to be able to make a public comment on any matter germane to the jurisdiction of the governing body, regardless of whether that matter is listed on the agenda of the meeting. Why should citizens hope that politicians put something of importance on the agenda if that body has jurisdiction over it? So you're here to say, okay, if you're going to put a garbage dump behind my house, and if it's not on the agenda this week, and if there are development plans going on, I can't come and talk to you about it. And Irish Rutter's like, no, you can't. We're going to let the bureaucrats and the politicians control what the citizens can address the body about, which I don't agree with. So it's good that this moved forward. Hopefully it will continue to go. Bill protecting public school students from being required to use goofy, they, them, he, she, it, shim, them. I don't know what they are. They invent a new one every week. House Bill 1262, sponsored by freshman Representative Michelle Renault, who I think is a pretty cool lady, would change the language of the Tennessee Code, which basically just says we don't have to do this bull crap. It also ensures that school employees, educators, and students will not be held civilly liable or subject to any form of disciplinary action for using someone's biological correct pronoun. Thank God. Finally, and you might encourage your local sheriff to do this, Hamilton County Sheriff seeks jail enforcement model partnership with ICE. Austin Garrett, our high sheriff, says he plans to participate and pursue a program that would allow deputies to identify and arrest individuals who do not have U.S. citizenship in an effort to assist ICE. There are 3 models operated by the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement's 287G program. Jail enforcement model identifies and processes individuals with criminal or pending criminal charges who have been arrested by state and local agencies and lack U.S. citizenship. A task force model provides a force multiplier for law enforcement agencies, enable them to enforce limited immigration authority under ICE oversight during routine police duties. And a warrant service officer allows ICE to train, certify, and authorize state and local law enforcement to serve warrants to individuals without U.S. citizenship in each agency's jail. The ICE website shows that the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office is one of the 32 agencies that are pending approval for jail enforcement model. Garrett said he has not signed up for the paperwork for the program yet. Currently, only 3 sheriff offices in Tennessee are part of the program: Greene, Knox, and Putnam County. So I'm going to be reaching out to Austin. Hopefully we can do an interview to talk about this, because I think more sheriffs should do it. It is, in my opinion, the state's freaking job. I've been screaming this for 4 years. The only person in the state relentlessly saying, Bill Lee, Cameron Sexton, Randy McNally, local sheriffs, get off your tater-tot butt and freaking get these illegal aliens out of our state. Republican primary voters are clamoring for it, screaming for it. But it doesn't matter how loud we scream, because the money from the corporations that goes into leadership's pocket screams a little bit louder. And it always does. And so we got to keep the pressure on in these upcoming primaries to make sure that Republicans clearly get the message. We are tired of this rhino compromise bullcrap. Trump has a mandate, and Tennesseans want to see that same conservative wind blow across the 3 grand divisions of the volunteer state. That's it. That's the Big 7. I've given it all to you with everything I've got. Rushing through it a little bit quick, because we're about to get on the road. I'm actually going to go to the Tennessee Stands event a little bit early, and I'm going to do some roadie duties and help with the setup. You know, you look at a lot of these conservative organizations and you think, wow, this looks very big and it looks very impressive, and what an amazing amount of impact they have. But in fact, it's usually a handful of dedicated volunteers that make it happen. And when you have a large event, you need everybody to pitch in. And that includes you. Guys, find a place in the conservative movement in Tennessee where you can take your time, treasure, and talent and put it to use in a way where you can point at something and say, by golly, I made a change there. I can see that my commitment to this movement, to this campaign, to this organization has made a difference. What's going on this weekend? Well, I've already told you about half of it. Tonight, Tennessee Stands event. Early the next morning, Hamilton County Republican Party reorganization. Saturday night, probably going to church. Sunday, I hope staying at home all day long and getting some stuff cleaned up. I got to work in the garage. I got some stuff out in the yard to do. So I need a Sunday at home to just piddle with chores, which is frankly one of my favorite things to do. Guys, I appreciate all of you. It is so difficult to watch these conservative candidates in every race, in every effort, in every organization just get absolutely attacked by these rhinos and these folks that they've got these little fiefdoms and they want to protect them. Even if it doesn't make any money, even if it makes very little money, even if it doesn't make much of a difference, they would rather hold their seat of power and do absolutely nothing, or do something that's contrary to the will of those that elected them, than to let it go to somebody that's more talented and more driven and more capable and more willing to actually represent the views of those they purport to represent. And so as this happens, if you're a conservative, you need to get behind these individuals that are the tip of the spear with your prayers, with your money, and with your time. Brandon Lewis here with the 10Con Big 7. Love you, mean it. Hope I get to see some of you this weekend. Come join us. Talk to you next time. See ya.